For this lesson, we're going to set up our Java development environment. Okay, let's install Java 11. Now the first step in setting up our Java development environment will be to install Java JDK. And the first thing we need to do is to check to see if we even have it. So we're going to open up a terminal window and run a java-version command. So let's go into our terminal and we'll paste that command in. And when we run it, we see that we have no Java runtime present. So we're just going to OK that dialog there, and let's go back to our instructions to see what to do next. Okay, if we did have Java installed, we would have seen something like this. What version it was and what runtime was installed. And since we don't have it installed, we ended up getting no Java runtime present as the message. So let's go ahead and install Java 11 following these steps. So we're going to go ahead and go to Adopt OpenJDK, and we're going to choose the defaults, which is the version Java 11 and the hotspot VM, and then we're going to follow the prompts once we download that release. So let's go ahead and open this link in a new tab, and here we are at Adopt OpenJDK, and you can see here already selected is Java 11 and the hotspot VM we wanted. If it didn't detect your operating system correctly, which it did here for macOS, you could just go to the other releases, and then you can see here that the operating systems are supported: Linux, Windows, and macOS. So let's go ahead and go back to what was detected for us, and you can see here that macOS was detected, and that's good. So let's go ahead and click on latest release, and that's going to download. Okay, that's downloaded, so let's go ahead and click on that once we've checked our instructions to see what to do next. So we're going to follow the prompts. So let's click on it, and it's going to open the installer package, and we're just going to go ahead and hit the continue button and accept the license. And then we're just going to go ahead and click install, and I'll have to enter my password. And then it starts installing. Okay, that's all finished. And we don't need it, so let's just go ahead and delete it. So now what we want to do is go ahead and run that Java version command again in our terminal window and see what we get now. So we'll paste, and there it is. Java 11 is installed just as we wanted. Okay, to help us build Java, let's go ahead and install Maven. Now, Maven is a Java build tool that helps us manage dependencies for Java programs and helps us with running the compile commands. And so it's a nice utility to use, and so we're going to go ahead and leverage that. It's very, very popular. So we're going to go to apache.org to download this, and then we're going to scroll down to the files section, and we're going to want to download the right binary for our operating system, and you can see what those are there. And then we're going to go ahead and extract the binary, and we'll use the command down here. We want to put it in use a local share on a OS 10 or Linux system. So let's go ahead and open this in a new tab. And here we are at Apache Maven, and we're going to scroll down to the files, and you can see the binaries that we had listed before. For Linux and OS 10, you're going to want to go ahead and install the tar.gz. For Windows, you're going to want to install the zip file. And so we're downloaded, so we're going to go ahead and see what the next instruction is. And what we have is the binary that we installed. Okay, we did that. That's fine. Okay, now we want to go ahead and extract the source to user local share. So let's go ahead and copy this command. And back to our terminal window, we'll paste it in. And I have to enter my password. Okay, and so there it is, unzipped. All right, so the next thing we want to do is add it to our path so we can access it from anywhere. So in Linux and OS 10, you can create a symbolic link, and Windows has something similar. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this command, and we'll paste that into the terminal window as well. Okay, now that should give us the ability to run Maven from anywhere, and it's MVN, and we're going to run the -v parameter so we can see what the version is. So let's go ahead and do that, and we see that Apache Maven 3.6.3 is installed, and that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, now let's install Visual Studio Code. It's a nice code editor. So the steps to install is we'll be going to visualstudio.com, and we're going to go ahead and download and extract the binary. And we can run it from where it is, or we can move it to our applications folder. So let's go ahead and open that in a new tab. Okay, so here we are on Visual Studio Code's page. You can see it automatically detected our operating system, and it would detect Windows and Linux as well. So let's go ahead and download that. And while it's downloading that, you could look at their webpage. It's a really nice code editor. I like it. It's lightweight. You could use a full-blown Java editor such as IntelliJ's IDEA. But for now, let's just go ahead and keep it light, and we'll use Visual Studio Code. Okay, that's done downloading, so let's go ahead and click it to extract it. And it extracted into our downloads folder. So I can drag it over to my applications folder, or I could just go ahead and launch it from here. I'll click open. And now here we are in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to want to do is go back to our instructions, and I like to work on the command line, and we did all these steps. So I like a command line launcher. It's hard to say. And so the keyword code will launch the editor for us. So let's go ahead and close that out. We don't need it. And Command-Shift-P opened the palette for me on OS X, and I'm going to type the word code even though it showed up on the top there. It might not show up on the top for you. And that installed code on the path. So if I type that word, it'll launch this editor, and that's typing it in the terminal window. Okay, the next thing I want to do is install the Java extension pack since we'll be developing Java. So again, I'm going to do Shift-Command-P to open up the palette for all the commands, and then I want to install something, so I'm going to type the word install. And then we see install extensions. I like that one, so I'll click it. And now Java is what we want to install, and the Java extension pack is the one that we want. So let's click the install button here. And it's going to install several extensions for us. I got a pop-up message that said something about Java in my workspace. I'll click later on that. It's because I've done this before. You probably won't get that message. And now we got a message that says that we're in lightweight Java mode. Now, we probably want as much help as we can get. So switching to a heavier weight mode will probably work better for us, but I'm not sure about that. Lightweight mode might be enough, but let's go ahead and put us into a heavier mode that gives the editor the ability to help us even more. So I'll click on that, and then it says, are we sure we want to switch to standard mode? And yes, we do. Light mode would be for those who are more experienced. And I have a Docker message on there. You might have that too. You just close all the messages that don't have any relevance. All right, so we've got the extension pack installed, and it looks like we're all done here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and set up a Spring Boot application. So back to our instructions, we've got how to set up Spring Boot. We're going to go ahead and use the startspring.io web page, and we want a Maven project because that's what we installed, and also Java because that's the language we're going to be using. And then there's a couple of things here that will use the defaults and some changes to them as we go ahead and set this application up. So let's open that in a new tab, and here we are on Spring Initializer. And so we want a Maven project, and we want Java. That's what's already selected, and the default version is fine as well. Okay, going back to our instructions. Now for project metadata, there's a couple of things here. Now the group is typically our reverse domain, and com.example is good enough since we might not have one, and that's the default there, and that's great. All right, the next thing is the artifact, and that's typically the application name, whatever you want to call it. Let's just call this one my dash application, and we use dashes in between the words just so we can read them easier. And that's our artifact, so that's what it's going to get compiled to in Spring. Okay, and then going back to our instructions, here's our human readable application name, and my application is fine for now. This is our first application, so let's go ahead and just stick with something simple for now. You want to come up with a better name for whatever it is that you're building, but this is just a tutorial, so let's go ahead and keep it simple. All right, and then for a description, let's just call it my first Java web application. And again, you're going to want to be more descriptive when you create this. I don't actually know where this shows up. It must show up in a description somewhere. Okay, so now we've got my application set up, and let's go back to setting up our description. And you're going to want to be more descriptive than my first Java web application. And I don't actually know where this shows up, but let's go ahead and paste that in there. And again, you want to be more descriptive. And for our package name, now this is the group plus whatever the application is, and you'll notice it put in a dash. And for Java package names, we don't want a dash. For one thing, a dash will show up as a compile error because it's assuming it's a minus sign. So let's go ahead and correct that to remove the dash. And then we want our packaging to be jar, and we want to choose Java 11. So let's go ahead. Those are the defaults, and that's good. And back to our instructions. The next thing we want to do is we're going to create a web application. So we want to add a dependency for web. So let's click on the Add Dependencies button, and we'll just type in the word web in the search. And there's Spring Web, so let's install that. And then we're going to go ahead and click the Generate button, and that will generate and download our application. And it downloads fairly quickly, and so it gave us the name that we picked, and then we can move it to the folder of our choice, excuse the helicopter, or you can just extract it wherever it is, and then we'll use this Maven command to run it. So let's go ahead and probably just keep it where it is downloaded, and that's fine too, or you can move it to whatever folder you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and open the terminal window and go to my downloads folder. And then I'm going to unzip the My Application zip because that's what got downloaded to us. And there's the name there. So I could just start typing and hit tab, and then it'll finish the name for me. And then it went ahead and extracted all of that application. You can see there's several files that it generated for us. And we'll just go ahead and change directory into My Application. And now that we're there, you see a few Maven commands. Since we're using Maven, it gave us the commands that we'll need to run. And this is how we'll run it. So Maven, Spring Boot, run. All right, so it's going to go ahead and download some of the dependencies and then launch. Now it's fairly quick application server, especially when it's a small application like this, and it's running on port 8080. So what we're going to want to do is open up another tab, and we could just click on this link here to make it handy. All right, and open it in a new tab. So it's on localhost :8080. And you'll see here we get an error message right away. So the server's running, but we're getting an error message because we didn't actually set anything up yet. And so that's going to be the next thing that we do. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add a response to our application server. So we got an error message when we were in the application before when we downloaded Spring Boot. So we're going to want to head and open Visual Studio Code. And we could just go ahead and type the keyword code once we get into our Downloads My Application folder. And that'll show that that command's working. So we're going to type the word code, and that's going to launch the editor, and we put dots to say here. So we're in the code editor now, and I had it open, so it just went back to where we left off. So let's go ahead and close these tabs. We don't need those. And now here we are in the downloaded application that was generated for us. And for Java, it's source main Java, and then our reverse domain. And then here is the Java application, and there's the word we gave it, my application. So it created a Java class for us. And what we're going to want to do is replace the code that's there with the code that's here. And so there's just a couple additions in this code here, and you can see the comment for lines that were added. So don't worry about what those do now, and excuse the barking dog if you can hear that. And we're just going to paste that in, and you'll see the added comment lines here, and we'll explain that a little bit later in more in-depth tutorials. So what we're doing here is just installing or importing in some library code to go ahead and do mappings to say /hello and respond to that. And then we'll be responding with the word hello world, words hello world. And so when we run this, we're going to Control-C first in our terminal to stop the running program, and then we're going to rerun it. And actually, since we didn't have it running here, we're just going to go ahead and launch it. If you did have it running, you would just use Control-C to stop it. And then we could go ahead and run our Spring Boot command again with Maven. So Maven Spring Boot run. Don't forget the dash. And now it'll launch with that new application code in it, and then we'll have a default response. Now that default response, remember, was at /hello, so we're going to want to enter that in. So let's go back to our browser. We'll open this in a new tab, and you see the /hello there. And when we open that, our page now says hello world instead of error. So we're done with this one. And there's the valid response that we saw. Okay, now let's set up our cloud environment. So the first thing we need to do is create a Google account. So let's do that. So we're going to set up a cloud environment. We're going to create our Google Cloud account, and by going to cloud.google.com, we'll open that in a new tab. And here we are over here with a Get Started for Free link. And we'll click that. And then log in with your Gmail account if you have one. Otherwise, you can create an account down below. And here's the link there. All right, and then I'll have to enter my password. Okay, now that I'm logged in, I have some steps to complete. I went to go ahead and create my account, so here's this. And agree to the terms and service, and I hit continue. And then I'm going to go ahead and just show what all this is, and then I'll pause the video because it's got personal information in here. So I'm an individual. And here I enter a name, an address, my city and state and zip, optional phone number, and you want to put a credit card on there for billing, which it's free for now, but then eventually they'll start charging you. You get $300 of credit for free. Okay, so I went ahead and entered all my information, and now I'm at this screen. And that's it. So now we're going to go ahead and install the Google Cloud SDK. So the next step, after we went ahead and got started for free with the sign-in button, we're going to go ahead and check for Python, because the Cloud SDK from Google needs Python. So we're going to run a similar command, so python-v, and we'll just go ahead and copy that. And we'll Control-C out of our running application, and we'll CD to our home. and then we'll go ahead and run that Python command. Okay, so I have version 3.7.8. Now let's assume that I don't have Python, or I want to install a version, because typically your system will have 2.79 on it if it's installed. So I upgraded to 3 at one time. So now I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I don't have Python installed, and I'm just going to go to python.org and do a download, and let's see what the latest version is there. Okay, the latest version is 3.9 at this time. So let's go ahead and download that. See, if we scroll down, we've got the other version, so we could go ahead and download other things, but we're just going to go ahead and go with the latest. When we're done scrolling, you can install specific releases. And actually, I think the Cloud SDK said 3.8 was the highest. So they don't support 3.9, so we would download 3.8. Now we want the one for our operating system, which is OS 10. So we'd want to install that one. For Windows, you're going to go ahead and get the Windows installer. And for Linux, you'd get one of the tarballs up above. And we'll go ahead and click on that to continue the install. And the defaults are fine. So I just keep hitting continue, accept the license. And then we'll go ahead and install. So remember, I had 3.8.7, so this is going to install 3.8.8. So I'll input my password. And then the install will happen. Okay, so that install finished. So I had 3.7.8, so now we're out in 3.8. So let's go ahead and run our Python version command again and see what we have. And now we have 3.8.8, so now we're on the latest of .8 as of the time of this recording. Alright, so then the next thing we're going to do is actually download and install the SDK. So we're going to want to open a browser tab to the quick start for installing, and it's going to download an installer for us, and then we'll run this command to do that. And we like to do all these things in a terminal window. So let's go ahead and click on the quick start link, and we'll open it in a new tab. Okay, so here we are in the quick start, and at the time of this recording it's 3.3.3. We already did the Python version check, and we're going to go ahead and install the package for our operating system, which is Mac OS. So let's go ahead and click on that to download it. And then we'll open up a terminal window and extract the contents of the folder. We're going to put this in our home folder. So we'll go ahead and unzip it or extract it, depending on what operating system you're on. And then there it is right there in our downloads folder. So let's go ahead and move that with the terminal window. So we're going to CD into the downloads folder and into the Cloud SDK. And we're going to list all the contents there. And let's just go ahead and leave it where it is. It's fine. And so we're just going to run the install from here. So we follow the prompts and run this install sh command. So let's go ahead and copy, and we'll paste that into our terminal, and then we'll run it. All right, we'll say yes, because we want to go ahead and let that go. Oh, I actually said no. I don't want to give any information. So then this is all the packages that can be installed. It's a couple of instructions here we don't need to be concerned with right now, and then there's a way to update the components. So we're just going to go and hit yes there to let that install in our path. And everything's been updated from what it says here. So let's see what happens now. We're going to exit the terminal because we need to restart it. And we're going to initialize gcloud. So let's go ahead and copy this command. And in a new terminal window, we're going to type gcloud init. And we must log in to continue. So when we hit yes here, our browser window is going to open to ask for our credentials. So I'm not signed in right now, and then I just go ahead and click my password. And these are the permissions that Cloud SDK needs. And so I'm just going to allow that. And here we are authenticated. So now we can run commands from our terminal window, and we're authenticated already. So you can see here it's actually giving a list of potential projects to set to. So I have some projects here already. And so I'm going to go ahead and select one of the existing ones. Okay, I selected Copper Canyon, but what I actually wanted to do is go ahead and pick our landing page service or create a new project. So I'm going to do that offline. Here's help if you ever wanted to run this, but we don't need to do that right now. It just shows that the gcloud was installed. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and deploy our application. And we do that by changing into that My Application folder that we downloaded and ran before, where we had Hello World running. And what we would do is run gcloud app deploy, and it'll deploy to the project we have selected. So I'm going to go ahead and change directory into that project. And it's My Application. And then I'm going to copy the command that we need to do the deploy. So gcloud app deploy. So just paste that here. And then you can see here I changed the target project to one of the existing ones, which was landing page service, and I did that there, and I did that while we were off recording. You could just create a new project if you don't have something existing, which you probably don't. So now it's going to go ahead and update, and we have an error here, which is, it sounds right because it's a new project that I created, and I haven't done anything to enable it yet. So I need to enable an API, and what it's telling me is here's the URL to visit. So I'll just copy that and open that in a browser. Okay, so now we've got the Cloud Build API. We need to enable this so we can actually build our application. And we'll also need to enable billing. So I'm going to select a billing account. You might need to set one up. So let's go ahead and set the account for that, and then Cloud Build will be enabled. Now it's not going to charge you anything because you have all the credits on there, but you do have to set up billing just to make it work. So now once this API is enabled, we can go ahead, and so there it is. We can disable it up at the top there. But this is now used to do our build. So if we run this again, it should work now. And we'll hit yes again. Okay, so now it's been deployed, and we can go ahead and browse our application in the cloud by running gcloud app browse, and we'll just paste that here, and it'll open a new browser tab for us. And we get the same error page that we got before because we need to append the hello path to it. And there it is. So now our application is running in the cloud.